Okay, everybody, please take their seats. I'm going to call the meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors to order. Notice of the meeting, this is a meeting of the Washington County Board of Supervisors. Prior to this meeting, public notice was given by posting a copy of the agenda in the office of county clerk and emailing the agenda to the West Bend Daily News, which is the official newspaper. In addition, the agenda was emailed to CNI newspaper, Express News, Kewaskum Statesman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, WIBD, NBC Radio, and WTKM Radio. The above action is in conformity with the state of Wisconsin open meeting law. You please join me for a moment of silent prayer before the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Supervisor Smisek is excused. Supervisor Mary and Supervisor Guzzi are here via Zoom. First order of business is consent agenda. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Mahalik, Supervisor Schleif. Any changes? Any additions? Thanks, Randy, for stepping forward to be on the ADRC board. Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda accepted. Under personal appearances, I have a distinct honor to commend our splendid county attorney, who is, we're all about innovation and finding better ways to build that mousetrap. Attorney Stern is front and center of finding ways to be better in government and more responsive to the citizens we serve. So, whereas FastCase was established in 1999 to democratize the law and encourage smarter legal practice with data and visualization tools, and whereas FastCase annually honors 50 of the law's smartest, most courageous innovators, techies, visionaries, and leaders with the FastCase 50 Award, and whereas Bradley S. Stern has been named the 2021 recipient of the FastCase 50 Award for implementing several technical improvements to Washington County's processes since his appointment in 2017, and whereas Bradley S. Stern identified a lack of specificity in Wisconsin's open record laws that requesters working under the law are due a response from the government as soon as practicable and without delay, and whereas Bradley S. Stern worked diligently with the Washington County's IT department to build a database for tracking received records requests, the progress of record searches, and how long searches take. Now therefore be resolved, the Washington County Board of Supervisors wishes to recognize and congratulate Bradley S. Stern on being a recipient of the 2021 FastCase 50 Award and thank him for his diligence, discipline, and creativity in serving the citizens of Washington County. Served, dated this day, August 12th, or dated August 12th, 2021. Awesome. Sometimes we fail to realize how important Brad is, and this really brings it to light. So thank you.
Thank you.
So we don't have a sewer pack right here right now. So we are going to move to resolution 20. Yeah. Resolution 2021 number 26, commendation of Deanna Brown. I'll take a motion to accept. Supervisor Bossert, Supervisor Kelling.
Whereas Deanna Brown has contributed 18 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Deanna Brown has chosen to retire from her present position of dining services cook at Samaritan Health Center, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Deanna Brown for her 18 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to her heartfelt thanks for her many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Deanna Brown as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Deanna's not here. Okay. We stand with a. (2021) Resolution 27, combination of Jan Gross, Supervisor Sorcy, Supervisor Bishop.
Whereas Jan Gross has contributed 17 years of loyal service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Jan Gross has chosen to retire from her present position of legal secretary in the County Attorney's Office Child Support Division, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Jan Gross for her 17 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to her heartfelt thanks for her many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Jan Gross as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Thank you for your dedication. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For your service. Thanks. James not here, correct? Okay, 2021 Resolution 28, combination of Jane Schwader. Take motion by Supervisor Schleif, Supervisor Godring.
Whereas Jane Schwader has contributed 28 loyal years of service to the citizens of Washington County, and whereas Jane Schwader has chosen to retire from her present position as certified nursing assistant at Samaritan Health Center, now therefore be it resolved that the Washington County Board of Supervisors pause in its deliberations to pay tribute and to commend Jane Schwader for her 28 years of meritorious service. Be it further resolved that on behalf of all citizens of Washington County, this body does herewith extend to her heartfelt thanks for her many accomplishments and successes. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to Jane Schwader as a token of appreciation on the part of this board.
Jane's not here, so yeah. Thank you. The opioid settlement update you have on your desk, a report on that. Are there any questions of Attorney Stern regarding the opioid lawsuit update?
I don't know how much we're getting yet, but hopefully soon we'll know.
Okay, all right, seeing none, we'll move right into 2021 Resolution 29, Public Outdoor Recreation Grant, All-Terrain Vehicles, ATV Program. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Krebs, Supervisor Pollock. Are there any questions, any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote on this electronically. Shortly. Everybody on? Supervisor Mary, could you text in?
I did text in voting yes.
Okay, we have a yes. Okay. Resolution passed unanimously. 2020 Resolution 30, Public Outdoor Recreation Grant Snowmobile Program. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Gallant, Supervisor Sorcy. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, vote on this electronically. Okay, apparently Supervisor Mary, your texts are not coming through. Could you indicate your vote?
Yes. Affirmative.
Okay. Resolution passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is 2021 Resolution 31, Sheriff's Office Staffing Change. Supervisor Bossert, Supervisor Markwart. Are there any questions about this one? Any discussion? Okay, we will vote on this electronically.
I vote to the affirmative.
Resolution passes unanimously. 2021 Resolution 32, authorization to transfer designated CIP funds from the jail expansion project to the radio project. Supervisor Mahalik. Anybody from the side? Supervisor Conrath. Is there any discussion regarding the transfer of the funds? Supervisor Dice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there anywhere on the books where we are expecting to do a jail expansion?
No, we really are not with the jail population as it is. We don't foresee that anywhere in the near or even probably distant future. You can speak, Sheriff can speak to it.
Thank you. Yeah, as of right now, we have no indication of any type of jail expanding the walls of the facility. If we were to do any reorganization, it would all be internal, just the reorganization of the current workspace, but no expansion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Galitz.
I guess a similar question. So in 2014, we thought there would be a need for a jail expansion. So obviously things have changed that we wouldn't. I mean, that's what you alluded to. So just curious, what's driving the lack of change for a jail expansion since 2014?
I guess I can't speak to 2014, but what I can tell you is that we have a 321 bed facility right now in our now we're talking about COVID right now, but our average daily population is about 140. And we can comfortably go up to 250 without, even it's a 321 facility, 200, that amount of space, 250 can accommodate for spacing of individuals and inmates. So there's really just no reason in the near future. One of the reasons as well is we're leaning a little more on electronic monitoring. Previous administration was not real fond of that. I am more comfortable with that because electronic monitoring actually monitors inmates even closer than Huber program.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Supervisor Goddard can speak to this too. I think back in 14, we're looking at daily 185 up to 215 population. So it was starting to get to the point where if a trend would have continued, we would have looked at it. You want to add anything? Hold on, let me get you here.
Yep, I'm on. Okay, back at that time there, Nat, we did rent out beds and we had to stop that. And at that time, there was an awful lot. We were afraid that we were going to have to do something. But it came to pass that I don't know if it was really all the judges or just society was changing a little bit, and electronic monitoring and that came into effect, and that really slowed everything down for as far as inmates. It just seemed like for a while, everybody was doing everything wrong, you know, and courts were just jam packed. So, I mean, it's not that way today, and we're not, as far as I know, we're not taking boarders in, or very few right now, so.
Yeah, we're not renting out any space from any other facilities, and quite the contrary, I'm actually in discussion with one of the surrounding counties that's looking for space that we could generate revenue, because they're looking for inmates to house. So we're actually just kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can I ask how much is being transferred?
$2 million, I think it is.
That's Vegas, just throw anything in.
Yeah, I don't have the figures.
Oh,
right in
thank
front of
you.
me. Yeah, 2 million on the resolution. Okay. Supervisor Schleif.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I read through the material, it was a little ambiguous as to whether that money was ever going to be paid back. Seeing we see no need for jail, that money will just be spent on the radio project, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, see no further discussion. We can vote on this electronically.
Affirmative from here, please.
Who's not in? Can everybody check, make sure they're in? We have one supervisor didn't, is not in. You got it yet? Double check, make sure. You got it now? Okay. All right. Resolution passes unanimously. We're gonna move over to sewer pack. So got a little traffic issues.
Yeah.
Do you want to cover
There's
this one?
Do you want me there?
Could you come
Okay.
up to that one? Yeah. We'll get you, we can hear you a little bit better there. There you go.
Good to go? Is the mic on?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, somewhat ironic, right? The transportation guy coming late with a transportation issue. So my apologies very much for being late and forcing a rearrangement of the order. Chairman, supervisors, thanks for having me. I don't have a presentation for you today. I thought I'd just review briefly the memo and then take any questions. There hasn't been an election since the last time I talked to you, so I don't believe I've got any new supervisors here. So I think everyone's at least somewhat familiar with Sewer PAC, but I'm Kevin Muse, Executive Director for the Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission staff. And we provide advisory planning agencies to the 7 counties of the region, including Washington County, and a number of areas involving anything related to land use development, housing, commercial real estate development, environmental lands, and then anything related to physical infrastructure, particularly the public physical infrastructure of the region, including transportation. So I'm just going to briefly update you on what we've been up to over the past year since I spoke in front of the board on this issue last. And then, of course, happy to take any questions on anything. So in the memo that was, I think, provided to you, I did note that the comprehensive plan for the county, which was updated and completed in 2019, we did still have some of the assistance we were providing the towns remaining and really ongoing. Some of it was surprise requests from the towns, but we did work with the town of Hartford and the town of Jackson to complete their comprehensive plan updates. So that should complete all of the work related to the comprehensive plan update and keeping all of the communities that are part of the multi-jurisdictional plan and the county consistent with state law on that. We also did provide some technical assistance to county staff in 2021 earlier this year on a couple technical issues around comprehensive planning, and in particular making sure that the county's comprehensive plan and various either municipal or town plans weren't in conflict with some things, particularly around environmental corridors, but other elements as well. And that should avoid any issues related to that in the future as development is considered in the county. Otherwise, I did want to note, and this is a fairly small thing, one of the things that we do support as a staff is the Washington County Transportation Coordinating Committee, which is a group that meets, including some like ADRC staff and things like that, to discuss how to provide services to particularly seniors and people with disabilities for transportation in the county, and how to better coordinate those things and create more efficient options. The Threshold, Interfaith, those are other organizations that are part of that conversation. But as part of our federal requirements as the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the area, we do have to every 4 years update a small plan called the Public Transit Human Services Transportation Coordination Plan, which is a nice mouthful, but basically supports the work of that committee to, again, try to improve efficiency, provide high quality service to people with disabilities and seniors for transportation while reducing costs for everybody involved in that. And so we do continue that work. Since I spoke with you last, the regional plan was updated, Vision 2050, and I just wanted to note a couple things that we integrated related to Washington County's planning work into that plan. So the county had completed a bike plan since then, and so we integrated the recommendations from that bike plan into our regional plan. We also did, as was a point of contention a few years ago, we did remove the State Highway 60 reliever route from the region's long-range plan, as well as requested by the county. And then the other updates that we provided to that plan keeps the region eligible for federal transportation funds, which I'll talk a little bit more about that later and the impact that has on the county. We do provide zoning and land division ordinance assistance to towns and communities across the region upon request. In this case, in Washington County over the past year, both of those requests came from the town of Hartford. And so we did assist the town of Hartford with a few changes to their ordinance and writing a few things so that they could accommodate development that I believe was being considered near Pike Lake. Let's see here. We continue to provide environmental field work for transportation projects and for private property owners in the county. This means we will delineate wetlands and environmental corridors upon request of the property owner or on request of communities or the county for an infrastructure or transportation project. That is not a service that is charged for by on top of the levy contribution the county makes, and all of the communities and the private landowners in the county benefit from that service if they request it. Otherwise, we did actually have quite a bit of work that all combined to be finished at the same time around our lake management planning work in Washington County. So just a couple things. We did complete the Silver Lake, finally, the Silver Lake Protection and Rehabilitation District plan is completed. We were waiting on DNR review for actually a couple years on that, but we've passed that. And so we are now, that is now about to be out the door and published. We did complete a work for the Upper Oconomowoc River, obviously most of that in Waukesha County, but the watershed is included in that. And so there's a 46 square miles in the southwestern portion of Washington County that's within that watershed. And our work there should help with future development in that area, and also keeping the river in good shape and the lakes further downstream of it in good shape as well. Similarly, did some work on Negawicka Lake, again in Waukesha County, but with the watershed extending into Washington County. And then we did provide an update to the Big Cedar Lake watershed plan around land use and pollutant loading. And we gave a presentation for the Protection and Rehabilitation Lake for Big Cedar Lake. This report essentially is an amendment to a previous report we did for Big Cedar Lake. But again, it keeps them on top of situations involving aquatic species and pollutants and other issues that may impact the ecological value and property values around Cedar Lake. We are currently working on a few aquatic management plans in the county as well, and those aquatic management plans keep the lake districts or the community that requested them eligible for their aquatic management permits from the DNR. Those plans have to be updated every 5 years, and we provide that assistance. Other things to mention, let me see here, just make sure I'm not missing anything. We did assist the county, and this was a separate contract, so this wasn't in the levy amount, but we did assist the county in digitizing a bunch of historical dossier sheets from surveying, essentially. And so now those sheets that is completed, that dossier information is now searchable via our online database, and the county has access to that database, and anybody who would want to view those historical sheets would have access to that database too. So provided that as well. We have perennially provided pavement rating for the town of Polk. He seems to be, the chairman of the town of Polk seems to be the only one who's aware in the county that we provide that service. So if you know of other towns that would like us to help them with their every other year required Whistler ratings from WSDOT, which is rating the pavement quality of your local roads, we're happy to help anybody, but the chairman definitely has that cornered in Washington County. So we are going to be helping him with that in September. Oh, well, thank you. We enjoy talking with him, so, and hearing from him. Otherwise, I think I'm just going to briefly talk about some of our regional transportation efforts and other regional planning efforts. So to touch on what I talked about before, we are the designated metropolitan planning organization. Washington County has two federally determined urbanized areas within it, the West Bend urbanized area, which does include West Bend, of course, Slinger, Hartford, but also Kewaskum and Jackson. So it stretches across many of the more urbanized parts of the county. And then also the Milwaukee urbanized area, which Germantown and parts of Richfield are in. And so those, there are federal requirements associated with being an urbanized area. Those planning requirements are essentially our job to fulfill. And as through its participation in fulfilling those requirements and the commission, and then also the staff that are on our advisory committees, the county ensures and we ensure that the county remains eligible for Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration funds. So there is a list of recent, within the past decade or so, projects that have been undertaken in the county with those federal transportation dollars. I just drove through one to get here, the diamond grinding and shoulder restoration that's happening on Highway 45. It's probably one of the larger projects that's been undertaken. And although that is a state project, again, that wouldn't be possible unless all those planning requirements were fulfilled. Also include relatively recent projects, reconstructing the intersection of State Highway 145 and County Air, reconstructing State Highway 60 between 41 and 45, and then the intersection of State Highway 145 and Donjas Bay Road are some of the ones that have been added to that list. This does represent on average about $14 million a year that is spent on the road infrastructure in the county in federal dollars. And then of course, there's the county transit system as well, which does receive Federal Transit Administration dollars. There was quite a bit of that in 2020. So we did help Washington County Transit, Ozaukee County Transit, and the others in the Milwaukee urbanized area, as well as a little bit of assistance for Hartford and West Bend, although they primarily need to deal with the state on that type of assistance. Assisted those parts of the region with determining the distribution of those federal aid funds related to COVID relief. And then also upon request, if there are requests for how should we spend it? What should we spend it on? How do we invest it in a way that makes sense long-term? We've been assisting counties and communities with that as well when requested. Otherwise, I think I will move forward through a lot of the transportation. There are a number of funding sources with transportation that Scott Schmidt, the Highway Commissioner, participates on committees that help determine how that funding is distributed. And so the county is ably represented by Scott on those committees, and also assists, Scott in particular helps assist the West Bend Urbanized Area Committee by chairing it to help distribute those funds within the West Bend Urbanized Area. And then he is the county's representative on the Milwaukee Urbanized Area Committee for that. And so that's the list of projects or sorry, of funding sources that are kind of rattled off on later pages in this. Otherwise, I just want to note two things that we have going on that are one that is brand new, one that's been ongoing, but we're still working on. So one of our larger regional studies going on right now, really the largest regional study we have going on right now, is called the Regional Chloride Impact Study. I believe I mentioned this before, but just to remind you, it's looking at the impact and where it comes from of salt on lakes, rivers, and streams in the region. And the reason this is important is because as of right now, there's not any real cost-effective way to remove salt through the waste treatment process, or obviously anything that runs off of the roads or anything like that, or salt that's used as part of agricultural processes, those types of things. So all of that ends up in the lakes, rivers, and streams. It's not a huge deal for for streams and rivers because it does wash through. However, it tends to be deposited in the lakes and stay. And so we are working on trying to determine cost-effective ways that can reduce the use of salt as much as possible. Actually, home water softeners seem to be as much of a contribution as road salt does to that issue. And so we're working right now. We've finished the monitoring process. We had 40 monitors spread in rivers and streams across the region. And then there were 6 lakes, including Silver Lake in Washington County, that were being monitored as well as part of the monitoring phase of that project. We've now switched gears to analysis and looking at state-of-the-art technologies. I do want to note, I'm not trying to kiss up to Scott, but the Washington County Highway Department is one of the leading highway departments in the region on brining, which is both a cost-effective way to make sure your roads don't ice over in the winter, but also uses much less salt per square foot of pavement. And so is got double positive of saving local governments money, saving county governments money, and also reducing the impacts on the environment in the lakes, rivers, and streams. So we do have some lakes in the region that are approaching what is called brackish, which is the point at which the water starts to taste salty in the human mouth. So this is a thing of concern. And that is one of the reasons that this study was asked for and was requested by Walworth County. So that is why we're undertaking that study. The other regional effort we have going on right now, it's quite a bit smaller and not as complex as the chloride study from a technical perspective, but we did get requests for a regional food system plan. And really the request there was to connect parts of the region that may not have great access to healthy food, and connect those communities and those neighborhoods and those areas with sustainable and particularly financially sustainable farming practices, with the hope of making our family-owned agriculture in the region more fiscally sustainable long-term. And so that's kind of the concept behind that plan. That is a brand new effort. We're really just starting it, but we are reaching out to many parties for the advisory committee on that, and in particular trying to make sure that we have representation from farmers on that advisory committee. And so we've been working to ensure that moving forward. With that, I'm just happy to take any questions or comments or feedback you might have.
Thank you. You mentioned Walworth County was asking on the salt. Is that because of Lake Geneva or other lakes?
I believe it was primarily driven by Lake Geneva. The person who requested was the chairwoman of the Walworth County Board, Nancy Russell, and she does represent the Lake Geneva area. So that would be my assumption, yes.
Thank you.
Supervisor Gallutz.
Thank you, Chair. So a couple questions. You had mentioned the federal transportation funding on average 14 million.
Mhm.
Is that the max that we can get? So are we capitalizing?
So how much comes in each year, and the table in fact, let me just pull it up quickly here in my notes so I can give you the right numbers. Thank you. So it can vary quite a bit on the highway side in particular, just because of the lumpiness of highway infrastructure projects. The one going on right now on 45 is a more expensive project. Obviously, smaller projects result in less money. So if you look at the page 8, table 1 at the top, you can see that it varies between as much as just a few $100,000 a year. Maybe that would be a year that there was only an intersection safety project happening on either a county or state road, or can get as high as about 26 million a year when there's a big project. And so the way to maximize that is really through the State Department of Transportation, mostly. When it comes to county-owned assets, that is a conversation. There is some money that is directly allocated to the Milwaukee urbanized area and directly allocated to the West Bend urbanized area. And those project shares are determined by the committees that I mentioned. And so the county does work cooperatively with the communities in the West Bend urbanized area to determine how to distribute those funds. And that's a set amount every year. So there's really nothing to maximize there.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Sounds like we're on top of it and we're doing as much influencing and making as much noise as possible, get as much dollars as we can.
Yep.
Thank you. Comments or questions? So the pilot with Washington and Ozaukee County for the ride share, it's only a few months in, but what metrics have been created or are being used or will be used to assess the efficacy of that pilot?
I wouldn't want to speak for the counties on that. I don't want to put you on the spot, Scott, but so I can say so we wrote a memo as part of that conversation when it initially started in 2017 and 2018. And the things that we talked about at that point were cost efficiencies, robustness of service. So how many service hours are you providing? How easy is it for people to get a ride? Are they, finding that there isn't enough capacity or something like that? And then ridership. And so does demand or ridership increase, and does it increase because of better service? So it was kind of a balance of the concept behind the merger when we first talked about it with both counties at their request was to make sure that we could either for very little more money or for no more money provide better service to the passengers. But I don't know if more has been established since then. So.
No, Kevin did a great job. Thank you for explaining that. The other metric we're looking at is the timing of the route. If you recall, the way they get from Washington County to Ozaukee County was to go through Newburgh. And now if you're in Jackson, want to go to Cedarburg, you now have a direct line to get right from Jackson to Cedarburg versus going through Newburgh. So the other metric we're looking at as well is what's the time of those rides now to get across county lines. So besides the metrics that Kevin mentioned.
Yeah. Thank you.
To the workforce mobility assistance, housing stock.
Mm-hmm.
Worldwide, there's a problem with housing stock, and how is Sewer PAC helping advise Washington County and other counties in that area regarding housing stock?
Yeah, I don't have silver bullets for you on that on housing costs and production. What we have done, and this is assistance we provide on request, and we do have a regional housing plan, and so it follows through the work that we did back in 2013 on that regional housing plan. And so we will, upon request, identify, sometimes there are regulatory barriers to building housing. Zoning codes might encourage more expensive homes, might force more expensive homes. Those are not usually within the counties, and frankly in Washington County, not usually within the county zoning code. It's within some of the municipalities. And there's reason for that. We know how schools are funded. We know, the types of communities that they want to preserve, but it does make workforce housing and things like that a real challenge. So we have a number of recommendations around that, and we are willing to do studies. We do housing affordability studies for communities upon request. I do know that EDWC has a pretty robust study for the entire county, either underway or complete already. And that's going to, based on what I've talked about, when I've talked with Christian about it, it's going to align very closely with a lot of the recommendations in the regional housing plan about how to reduce barriers so that the market can produce more cost-effective homes. The other piece of it, and I'm not sure I have a great answer on this, is labor costs are going up too. And that's been happening for years and certainly has gotten more acute. There's just a shortage of the people who build homes. And so that's another piece. And I'm afraid from my perspective, I don't have a lot of useful advice there. So.
I mean, it's just state in the office. So without housing, you can't grow a population.
Right.
And therefore you can't grow Washington County.
Right. Right.
Supervisor Conrath.
Yeah, I would like to formally thank you for helping out the town of Polk. I am the county supervisor, of which my district covers most of the town of Polk and a little chunk of Jackson, and I give monthly county synopsis updates at their town of Polk meetings, and shared a little synopsis of what you had in our agenda today. And the Chair Schulteis did speak highly of your services and said they were very efficient. He is looking forward to, I believe it's in September,
Yep.
your next assessment.
Yep.
But yeah, he truly did speak highly of you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We enjoy helping the town with that every
Okay.
year. So
And
every other year.
Okay, very good. I do have a couple of things. Some of my other accountabilities are on the PRDs for Big and Little Cedar Lake. And I'm a little curious about on page 4 to 5, the lake management planning assistance. You speak of stormwater management. I live in Cedar Lake Hills,
Okay.
and we have this this pond that butts our neighborhood. And there was a natural stream that came across Arthur from the south, flows into Farmer Gonza's pond and through our subdivision and into the very southern bay. That hasn't been tackled yet. I'm new in this role, just a year, and then newer to the PRDs too. So I see that something in our future we need to tackle, and I would love to show that to people right now because it is just roaring with this latest rain.
Okay.
And we did dredge our marina a couple years ago, did get a permit, but there's a lot of sediment, and like you speak of this water quality from the farms across from Arthur and stuff, it is a big issue, and that hasn't been addressed yet. Is
Yeah.
that something I could reach out and partner with you on and connect you with our PRDs, or?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And they hopefully are quite familiar with us. We've worked with Cedar Lake for a long time, Big Cedar Lake for a long time. But
Oh, okay. Bless your
but yes,
soul.
I would be happy to, and we can certainly get staff out there to look at the creek and pond issue you talked about with Cedar Lake Hills. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And also you speak of the chloride in the water. You're monitoring Silver Lake, and next you're going to be assessing the data. Now, did you also look at other lakes or just Silver? Did you look at Big and Little Cedar or?
There actually is some data out there already collected
thought.
on Big and Little Cedar.
Okay.
The reason, so we only chose 6 lakes across the region to monitor because basically we picked a variety of types of lakes, so seepage
Okay.
lakes versus spring and things like that. And what we were trying to do was get a representative sample within our staff capacity
Okay.
because it's different. So the 40 monitors in the streams and rivers were attached with cellular devices and sent data back to our offices. So all we had to do was go out and clean them maybe once a quarter, not a big deal. The lake actually requires our staff to go out on a boat or in the middle of winter on like a snowmobile or something like that,
Oh, that's
bore a
fun.
hole in winter, drop a sample, because what we're
Yeah.
trying to get with the chloride is we're trying to figure out how different it is at different levels within the
Yeah.
lake. And then depending on whether or not it's the type of lake that turns over in spring and fall, how does that impact the salt concentrations throughout the lake?
Okay.
So.
So a timeline on your data analysis?
Yeah, so we officially stopped monitoring and pulled most of our, well, didn't pull them, but stopped monitoring the devices in spring. So we hope to have some preliminary data analysis next year,
Okay.
early next year. The most challenging part of that study is going to be the now what,
Mhm.
because we didn't undertake this study with an attempt to rip softeners out of everybody's house and, tell people stop salting and, the roads, that's, whatever. So we're
Mhm.
trying to figure out efficient practices that maintain public safety, maintain costs, maintain quality of life, but reduce impacts on the lakes. So that part will take a little longer, but initial data analysis should be coming relatively soon. So,
Okay, then do you see like partnership maybe with the PRDs in the future?
yep, the
on that?
PRDs and nature centers,
Yeah, okay.
like right next to us here in
Yeah.
West Bend,
Okay.
and other entities like that, we expect will be partners on this moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And just this last one, you have rehab of bridges in here. Oh, my screen went away. I'm just curious. Speaks of a rehab of bridges along Interstate Highway 41 between County K to Dodge County Road. Is that just County K, or are you, I'm curious, like I said, I represent the town of Polk. That wood bridge on Arthur Road, is that included in this?
It would be bridges along I-41. So
Oh,
it'd
I
be-
see.
Yeah, yep.
Okay,
exactly.
that's what I was I don't want to assume. I
Yep.
was just maybe wondering if you're extending out because that's been a
No.
little bit of an issue. Okay. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay, seeing no further questions. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And I apologize again for rearranging. the
Not a
agenda.
problem. We have other business to fill in that spot. Take care. Okay, back to business. 2021 Resolution 33, resolution declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures on emergency communications project from proceeds of borrowing. Entertain a motion. Supervisor Marquardt, Supervisor Kelling. Are there any questions or discussion regarding this? Margie's here, if you have any. Oh, sorry, Supervisor Krebs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can someone explain why we have to declare the intent? I read through the packet and I'm still not clear. Is it so we are allowed to use future borrowing to reimburse ourselves for money spent?
Correct. So this, legally, we are required to declare the intent so that when we do issue the debt, those that buy our bonds are aware of our intent to reimburse ourselves for previous expenses on the project. And this gives us the approval to do that.
Okay, so if we don't do this, but in the future we borrow money and put it back into our general fund, that would be illegal?
Yes, we would be out of compliance with the debt requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Gallus.
What are we projecting the actual total cost? Reason why I ask is it talks about 14 million in the resolution of declaration, but then in some subsequent actions in the CIP, I think I see 16 million over 3 years. So that adds up to 17. So I'm just trying to understand, if we're talking 14 and we just talked about 2 million from the jail CIP or the jail expansion fund, what is the total amount? And is this better asked in a different resolution?
It's for the radio project.
Yeah. So the resolution, as everything kind of keeps progressing on this project, we keep getting additional information, narrowing down costs and the project timeline with the sheriff's office. So there has been some probably changes in some of our original estimates of cost. I would say the numbers that are in the CIP that we're looking at tonight would be the most accurate that we have at the time. This resolution had started a couple of months ago already because it had to go to the referring committee before it came to you. So the 14 million referenced in here isn't binding us to anything. That would be the next resolution I will be bringing forth to you guys when we set the actual debt borrowing amount. So this was just kind of our best estimate at that time it was prepared.
Thank you.
Supervisor Kelling.
Thank you, Margie, for being here tonight in front of us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So In layman's terms, would you say that this is kind of like when you buy a house, that you promise, should there be any leftover paperwork or whatever, that you will act in good faith to make sure that everything is tidied up even after the sale? So in this case, we're basically reassuring the bond buyers that we are acting in good faith on this. And that's what this really is.
Yeah, essentially, we're just saying that because of the type of the project and we've got some costs happening now, we can't wait until we issue the debt to pay for that, but they would qualify underneath the debt for use. So we're letting them know that that's our plan.
And so as we move forward with this project and we start getting into the numbers, we need to make sure that our bond buyers understand that we are committed to this project and that we are indeed going to fulfill our obligations under the terms of the bond.
Exactly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on this electronically.
Supervisor Murray votes yes.
Everybody? Missing one more? One supervisor needs to make sure they're in. Jeff, make sure you press in, present, and then vote. Everybody in? Okay, resolution passes unanimously. 2021 Resolution 34, 2022-2027 Washington County Capital Improvement Plan. Motion Supervisor Mahalik, Supervisor Hartwig. Is there any discussion on the CIP? Yeah. Oh, by the way, it's 2/3 vote. So Supervisor Gals.
Thank you, Chair. So the 2022-2023 sales tax collection estimate, what degree of confidence do we have that that will be met and even, I guess, future tax collection?
Sure. We're pretty confident in this number. Matter of fact, given recent information, we think this may actually be a conservative estimate at this time. So we're even looking at those one more time. So we're confident about these sales tax numbers.
Right. Thank you.
Supervisor Krieger Gunrum.
I just had one question. As I went through the highway department, I didn't see anything in there for Highway 83. We didn't put an estimate in there for that.
Yes, I can answer that certainly. If you recall last time, we we're going to use the proceeds from the Highway 83 jurisdictional transfers for that work up in that area. So that's not a CIP, that's not sales tax. So that's why it's not included in this plan right now. So we're also starting from scratch in that project. So once we get a better idea of what we are going to be doing out there, we'll have a better cost on the funding source.
Can I just ask how much monies are there out there for the, obviously it was the whole project and now it's been scaled back, but how
Right.
much money is there?
I would have to go back and look at the notes. I think it was like around 2.5 million, something maybe right around that amount. It certainly wasn't that packet that I gave at that presentation. The amount's in there somewhere.
So that whole entire project, including with the extension, was only 2.5 million? No.
No, that was the part that was going to be utilized out of that fund.
Oh, I see. Okay, and then where would the difference have come from for the expansion of W?
Well, we're not doing that anymore.
I
But
know, but
at that time,
at
it
that
would
time-
have, that's why we were going to you for sales tax funds potentially. I kind of put that one off the back of my head. I have to go back and review the notes, and everything was in the packet at that time if you want to relook at that.
Okay, so when those funds were allocated, was that intended for some of that to be borrowing?
The funds were not allocated.
Okay.
we had to approve the funding. And when the funding came to us, we did not approve it. So the funding never was applied to that project, correct?
Correct.
So the funding that was intended for that, I was just trying to get a sense of how much money that was. And then what happens with that funding? Is that sitting in another, is that in your general fund? Basically,
I believe it's in your general fund, yes.
it's in the general fund. Okay. Not in the highway fund.
Correct.
Okay. And so there's money in the general fund that would have covered that. Okay. And I'll go back and I'll ask you how much that money was because I'd like to know that.
No, I'm not.
Seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on this electronically.
Aye from Supervisor Mary.
All in. Resolution passes unanimously. Announcement for those of you going to the WCA conference. This is the last call for room reservations for the WCA conference in September. If you are interested in attending and would like one of the rooms that were blocked off, please let Takara know before you leave tonight. The remaining rooms will be canceled by Friday. Okay, so if you're going, don't have a room yet, see this lovely lady right over here and you can take care of that. Okay, seeing we have completed all our business, hereby adjourned. Thank you.